Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 147. Fans of snooker will register 147 as the maximum possible break at snooker.
Okay, I don't know what that... I know I've heard of snooker as you said. What does that mean, break?
A break is like, you know, when you go, you pot a ball, you get to go again, you pot another.
Yeah, like in pool, like regular
points,
pool. Yeah.
Like pool, yes. Except snooker is a more refined sport, if you will.
Right, okay.
And the most points you can score in a single break at snooker is 147.
Oh, okay. Did not know that. And now I do.
So basically with snooker there are 15 red balls and then there's 6 coloured balls. And the pattern of playing snooker is you pot a red ball. And when you pot a red ball, you then get to pot one of the coloured balls.
Okay. Yeah.
The valuable one is the black ball. It's worth 7. So then you pot the black ball. It comes back on the table. The red is gone, but the black comes back onto the table.
Okay, yeah.
So the maximum possible break is all 15 reds, all 15 blacks, and then all the colours at the end. And that comes to 147 points.
That's quite the run.
It has been done. It's been done many times in professional snooker. And very exciting. But pedants, in fact, I'll do this in 8 episodes' time. Pedants will tell you that the maximum theoretical break in snooker is 154 because... No, did I get that wrong? Of course I got it wrong. My math is terrible. It's 155. Because you can be awarded a free ball, which allows you to pot any ball as if it's a red. So you can pot a fake red, and it comes back on, and then you can pot the black off that one and get 8 extra points at the beginning. No one has ever done this.
Oh, wow.
This is
fascinating. Now you're getting deep. We should rename this the Ghosts of Snooker.
Okay, so as I was saying, episode 147 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 3 of A Storm of Swords, that's Arya 1, which is so short we can digress about snooker.
I was just thinking that same thing. We don't have to keep quite an eye on the time with this one. As always, we're going to chat about the chapter and snooker, and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment while we do it.
My best ever break at snooker was 28. I got a red, and then a pink, and then a red, then a pink, then a red, then a pink, then a red, then a pink.
Wow, that's impressive to me.
I'm impressed. I played a lot of snooker, and that was the best I ever did, so... I'm not troubling the professional game, but I was very proud of that. We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information that will be particularly handy if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly?
I am tired, but I'm doing all right.
You're back from a vacation, right?
We got back into North Carolina yesterday midday, and I tried my best to stay up as late as I could to throw the jet lag off in the. I made it up the latest of my family. We were in Hawaii. We spent a week in Maui, and that's 6 time zones for those of you keeping score. Oof. So we left 8 p.m. Maui time and got in at noon the next day, East Coast time. So I made it till 10. The next closest Molly made it till 9 p.m. and Stacy and Ethan both fell asleep at 7. But, it's because no one slept on the flights.
Yeah. I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
Did the flight undo all the joy? I mean, like...
especially on the way out there, I was concerned about that. But the minute we got to the resort we were staying at, well, not the minute. I was still pretty tired. I was feeling... Because it was like, we got in, our flight got delayed out of Dallas. We flew to Dallas and was supposed to be a 2-hour layover. It turned out to be a 6.5-hour layover.
Ish. So
we didn't get to Maui until like 7 or 8 p.m., which would have been the wee hours of the morning East Coast time. So we were all pretty exhausted. But the next morning when I woke up at 3 a.m., because that's what my biological... Stacy and I both woke up at like 3:20 a.m.
Oh, God.
when we were walking around the resort, it was pitch dark out. But what were we supposed to do? So, but no, it wasn't. It wasn't a deterrent. It was. I'm not saying I'd go back next week, but I would go back.
Okay.
It was.
I've never been to Hawaii, but I've heard great things. I've heard it's wonderful.
Yes, it really was. It really was. We did a lot of really cool things. The very first day, we went. We got surf lessons.
Okay.
My family went with my really good friend Chris's family and his brother Matt, and we all, except for Stacy and Chris's wife Becky, all went and got surf lessons. And they're ranging from Chris and Matt and I, grown middle-aged adults, down to kids around 11-year-old.
Okay.
And I was by far the worst.
Oh.
By far the worst. We were there for 2 hours. 2 hours of, the lesson part took 10 minutes. So it was an hour and 50 minutes of trying to
stand up on the board and surf.
I was the only one that never successfully did it. I got close a couple times, but my center of gravity is not meant for things of that nature. I'm not good at roller skating or ice skating or anything like that. So I'm not shocked, but boy, was I bad. Stacy took many quite humorous videos to everyone else of me just falling, trying to get up and just falling off the board without even getting to my knees or anything.
I feel like I would be particularly terrible at that, I have to say.
I don't know. How's your balance?
Well, I can do the wakeboarding, but you see these people with the boats where they do basically surf behind the boat.
Yeah.
You've seen this?
Yeah. I have.
And with a little rope, and then they let go of the rope, and they can just surf indefinitely back there. I mean, that seems to me to be the place to learn.
Yes, it would.
Because you've got an ongoing infinite wave that just keeps going and going.
Right.
You get good like that.
I did get up one time. I got up and got my balance right as the wave petered out.
Look at you.
Right as it got to the surf and petered out, I was like, I did. Oh man!
It was curving over your head, right?
Yes, I was in the tube. Yes, we had a lot of fun. We went snorkeling, saw some really cool things. Molokini Crater, and I saw a sea turtle in this section called Turtle Town. And Stacy and the kids and I went out on an outrigger canoe. We went out into the ocean. That was pretty cool. Saw turtles. Our guide, who was in the back, we'd see a sea turtle, and he would steer our canoe so that the sea turtle would go float between the outrigger part and the canoe part where we sit, and it would just float right by. It was really neat. So
sweet.
Did a lot of really cool stuff. But I'm back. I'm tired, but I'm ready to talk about Arya. So now,
do you know that our company bought a Honolulu-based company while you were gone?
Seriously?
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
It is weird.
You could have popped over and met them.
Yeah.
Got the trip paid for.
I wasn't in Honolulu. I was in Maui, but still not too far away.
Hawaii is just a black box to me. I mean, people ask me which. Carson told me to ask you which island. And I was like, I asked him, and he said the name of an island, and it meant nothing to me, dear.
We were in Wailea, Maui, which is the southern part of Maui. So it's
good.
Quite,
part,
yes.
Not the northern part, yeah.
It's the place to be. It's all the rage.
All the rage. Well, because you went there, it would be, yeah.
Do you know a weird thing that also happened while we were out there? It randomly came up. I can't even remember how it came up. About David Robinson. He's a former NBA great. He went to the Naval Academy and played center for
Don't you have a photograph with him?
Stacy and Ethan. We were in Annapolis. And he was there, and Stacy and Ethan took a picture with him. And it just came up one night at dinner. I can't even remember why it came up. I think it started talking about how big Shaq was. Someone mentioned about how large Shaq was.
Right.
And I mentioned when I took that picture of Stacy and Ethan that they looked like small children next to David Robinson. The odd thing, when my friend Chris and his family, they flew they live in a different city, so they flew a different route home. On their flight was David Robinson.
Get out.
Totally random coincidence that he just came
weird.
up the night before at dinner, and he was on their flight.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
It's the craziest thing. So.
Then the thing is, you got to wonder if that kind of thing is happening all the time, but it's only with NBA players that you get to notice them. You know, like,
Right, because he's 7'2" or something.
you could talk about soccer players all day long, and they could be on the flight. You'd never know. But
Good point. That's a good point. And of course, people like you and I would never know anyway because we're back in steerage, whereas my friend Chris and his family were up in first class. So only they would ever actually see the celebrities.
Good point. Good point. So I'm having fun here with my niece is in town still. We're having a good time. It's going well. Her presence reminded me of a story which I might have shared with you about my other niece, who isn't actually my niece. She is what my wife, the social worker, refers to as fictive kin.
Oh,
this is
okay.
A concept where you believe this, you act with this person as if they are kin, but they are not technically kin. So I have a fictive niece, and once, and this I don't even remember what platform it was she was contacting me on. It was, let's say Google Chat or something like that. But she accidentally started a 3-way conversation with me, her, and another person called Simon.
2 Simons.
And I was like, that's kind of weird, but I sort of like started, hey Julia, how you doing, kind of thing. And she quickly became aware of what she'd done, and she clearly didn't want to talk to me. I was clearly not the
You were the wrong Simon.
Turned out other Simon was some hunky kid she'd met on vacation. But of course, this is just red rag to a bull to me. I'm like in my element now. I'm like, oh, let's see, Julia. So I'm cracking jokes all over the place. But the thing was, I was really enjoying myself and thinking I was being really funny. And then the kid, Simon, came up with the best joke of all. He said, yeah, I know. I'm slightly annoyed by that, but he said, "Are you my conscience?" And I was like, you've won. I'll leave you to it.
I'm out of here. I'll leave you kids to your conversation. Oh, well.
All right, we're at the 12-minute mark.
Oh, goodness.
Let's get down to business. How did we leave Arya Stark? Well, as we saw of Arya, having stolen a Riverlands map and a dagger from Lord Roose Bolton, she was escaping from Harrenhal with Gendry and Hot Pie, neither of whom were quite so keen on the plan. In order to escape, she was forced to murder a guard in cold blood. A high price, but Harrenhal under Roose Bolton and the brave companions was fast becoming untenable. Mackelly, why don't we give them the summary of this one?
All right. Before I do, I just remind people, if you just listen to the past 12 minutes of Simon and I going on, and you don't want to do that, you could have always just used the chapter marker and skipped ahead to the character recap. But now it's too late since you've already listened to it.
Hang on though, Mackelly. Now that they know this, no one's ever going to listen to us again. Straight over that part.
Okay, so anyway, here we go with the summary. Rain falls as Arya, Hot Pie, and Gendry ride stolen horses north from Harrenhal. While wolves howl, Arya thinks about the thefts and murder that they've committed and how all of Harrenhal will rise up to find the escapees. She knows Roose Bolton won't hunt them himself, but she's afraid of his man Steelshanks Walton or Vargo Hoat and his bloody mummers. Their calling card is cutting off hands and feet, so that's incentive to keep going.
At the first stream, Arya does the smart thing and leads the horses upstream, throwing off any hounds that might be used in pursuit. Hot Pie is as wary of Arya as he is terrified of the pursuit. Arya's okay with that. She herself feels pretty good. Riding through the forest, steel weapons, and the sound of wolves. It's kind of her happy place.
Yeah. The gents both have trouble with their mounts, as they're city slickers. In a burned-out village, they see a dozen corpses hung in an apple tree. Hot Pie says a prayer to the mother. Arya recites her kill list. She pulls a wormy apple from the tree and eats it, including the extra protein. As dawn slowly rises, the lads finally ask Arya if she knows where they're going. North is the answer. She's headed to the Red Fork of the Trident, and from there upstream to Riverrun. Hot Pie is primarily impressed that she can read.
They wonder why she feels they'll be safe in Riverrun, but she's still withholding on who she is, at least from Hot Pie. Gendry's already in the know. Arya howls at the pack of wolves, and their leader howls back. She's worried that they're not moving fast enough, but there's no sign of pursuit. The boys' poor horsemanship is slowing them down, but Arya sees them as her pack now, so she plans to stick with them regardless. They come across a river, but Arya's not sure it is the Trident. It seems too narrow. Consulting the map isn't helpful. Some possible rivers run to the Trident, but others outflow into the God's Eye at Harrenhal.
They cross it together, and as night draws in, Hot Pie's wish for a fire is roundly refused. Arya doesn't want to let them stop, but eventually she succumbs to the inevitable and falls asleep in the saddle. When she wakes with a start, Gendry agrees to take first watch. Hot Pie is already asleep, and Arya reassures herself that the Bloody Mummers must also need to rest. She drifts off to the usual roll call of her enemies.
She vividly dreams of the Bloody Mummers, a Lyseni, an axeman from Ib, a Dothraki named Ego, and a Dornishman, through the eyes of a wolf. The wolf is huge, and the 4 men and their horses stink of fear. As she watches, her pack tears the men apart. The Dothraki manages to kill 2 wolves, but Arya leaps forward to kill him. She exults in the carnage.
So you can see why we spent extra time chatting. It's not the most impactful chapter, but
it's progress for Arya, but it's not an awful lot of progress.
Right. Yeah, which is one thing that Hot Pie points out when he realizes how far they've gone on the map.
Right.
He's like, your finger's almost touching Harrenhal. We couldn't have only come this far.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, Hot Pie grew up in King's Landing, right? I mean, he never went out of King's Landing. He has no concept of the size of the continent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he thought since they rode all day and night and hadn't stopped that they should be almost to Riverrun.
The wall should be hoving into view. So a thread throughout this chapter is the accompaniment of wolves. Pretty much all the time, they just sort of like it gets thrown in just repeatedly that they can hear wolves howling in the distance. So there's definitely a feeling here that this is Nymeria and her pack looking out for Arya, perhaps. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure we'll ever get that confirmed, but that definitely feels like it's...
Right, and they don't just hear the pack, they actually see
them
multiple wolves. So, one point, Arya thought she saw Bolton men crossing a stream, and it turned out to just be a wolf pack, and she howled at the pack, and the largest wolf of that pack howled back, and, like you just said, could that largest wolf possibly have been Nymeria?
Yeah.
Or could Nymeria's pack be staying close to keep an eye on Arya and the boys?
Yeah, that was my feeling. Is she never actually laid eyes on Nymeria? That Nymeria's pack is sort of dispersed. The largest wolf she saw there was just the largest wolf of that sort of sub pack.
Yeah, that most likely that's the case.
Yeah, because I feel like if she ever saw Nymeria, they would come together. They would, Nymeria would trot up to her. But maybe not. Maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking about if that was Nymeria and Arya howled at her, would Nymeria be able to pick up on Arya's voice? The sound of Arya's voice?
Well, you feel like they're still connected because you feel like Nymeria is tracking them and keeping them safe,
Right. And we also get this dream, which we'll talk about later. If this dream is a Bran type warging, or Jon at this point type warging dream, then there is definitely a spiritual connection between the two of them. So,
yeah.
But just seeing the house sigil, her house, the direwolf, seeing the wolves, especially during all this hardship and general time of confusion that she's got going on in her life right now, it possibly could be a boost to her strength, to give her the strength she needs to keep going on and continue to be the leader that she's been. And subconsciously, it probably both reminds her and us that she's a Stark of Winterfell, regardless of what name she's been going by or what role she's been playing, whether it's Ari or Nan or Weasel.
Yeah. Thinking about the whole Arya and Nymeria thing, if you've ever read The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman, one of the things that one of the motifs of that book is that children are born with what's called a demon, and the demon is their spirit animal. And pre-puberty, the the spirit animal can change form. It can change from a mouse to a dog to a cat to a lion, to all kinds of things. And at puberty, it sort of settles down into a single form and stays with the person for the rest of their life. But this thing is kind of like just that they're the person's spirit, and it's sort of connected to them, and they can never be too far apart from it, and it's just a constant companion for them. And this kind of reminds me of this. And one of the not to spoil that book for anyone, but one of the things that the authorities try to do is try to sever the bond between children and the demon, just to see what will happen, kind of thing. Sort of like monstrous experiments. To a certain extent, I feel like this is kind of what's happened to Arya and Nymeria here. That the two have been sundered, and they maybe can never quite come back together again because they've been parted and will always be apart. Yeah,
that's a very interesting way to think about it. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But we also get more description here as they're traveling through the Riverlands of just what's going on. And there's one line where the description says that this was the day without a dawn. And I thought, not even the sun comes out in the Riverlands these days. And it kind of felt like that line, a day without a dawn, felt like a visual metaphor for life in the Riverlands right now. It's pretty much endless hardship, and then you die. Either you didn't make it, you died early on, you fled, or if you're still in the Riverlands, you're basically just trying to eke out a survival as best you can here. We've seen from Jaime's perspective, he saw a few people still living in the Riverlands, and they were just trying to survive as best they possibly could under the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the more prosaic reading of this is that it was just a bit cloudy. But
it could be that too.
You always go for the poetic.
I know, I do. I have a tendency to do so. But it basically picks up right where Jaime left us as far as the description in the Riverlands. The same paragraph or so that I was referring to with the day without a dawn started with that they passed through burned villages and threaded their way carefully between shells of blackened hovels, past bones of a dozen dead men hanging from rows of apple trees, or a row of apple trees, something like that.
Yeah, and I think it comes to something, it points to where Arya's reached. I mean, she's still just a little girl, but she reaches up and eats an apple out of that tree, You are inured to the horrors when you can just eat the apple from amongst the dead.
Yes, absolutely. You're completely hardened at that point from seeing such atrocities, I guess.
But I hope it's human nature, not just me, to find Arya eating the worm-filled apple to be the most disgusting part of that. I should care more about the 12 dead men hanging from the tree, but my stomach turned at the apple with the worms in it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty gross. That extra protein, I'm sure, helped nourish her. Because
I did wonder about that though, because they're not actually short of food yet, so it's pretty ballsy of her to do that.
Yeah.
Earlier, you remember, before they got to Harrenhal, they were really eking out an existence, and I would have totally understood it there. But here, she's actually fed. So
right, yeah. So far, they were living off of acorn paste, I think it was, or something like that.
Right.
But you'll have to see how well 3 young people can ration their food, because food supply might become an issue when these meager supplies run out, and then they will be back to eating wormy apples and acorn paste.
Yeah. I'm not criticizing her. Eat what you can while you can on a journey like this. You're likely to run out of food, and at least if you've eaten that now, it'll be in your reserves for the future.
Right.
Fatten yourself up.
Yeah, we see Arya just completely, much like Nymeria is the leader of this large wolf pack here in the Riverlands, Arya is the clear leader of this tiny little pack of her, Gendry, and Hot Pie. And she feels responsible for them. And she lied to get them to come with her. She told Gendry that Vargo Hoat's plan was to cut off, I think, the left foot of all of the servants, one of the feet of all the servants of Harrenhal. So that was one of the ways she managed to convince Gendry to round up Hot Pie and go. So she definitely has some responsibility in keeping them safe here, because she totally made that up to get them to follow her. It makes you wonder, should she have done that? Should she have brought them? She could have escaped on her own. She got the horse by herself. She killed the guard to get out. So
yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, you'd hate to see a 11-year-old girl wandering the forests by herself.
Yes,
but
exactly.
On the flip side, she's certainly exposing these two to danger.
Yeah, and she realizes how much faster she could have gone by herself, because
Right.
they're not skilled riders. And I get the desire not to make this journey alone, especially for a 10-year-old. But, would it have been best for both parties if the boys had stayed behind?
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Hot Pie, with his cooking skills, was going to make a living there. I think Gendry was still vulnerable because Gendry is who he is, and so he'll always be of interest to the Lannisters,
That's a good point. If they ever discovered who he was, that could be
Right.
problematic for him. Of course, he have to discover who he is first.
They might never find him, but he is a blacksmith who looks like Robert Baratheon, and that'll always... Eventually someone will notice. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's possible. But, so you were mentioning about the dead men in the trees, and it is very similar to what Jaime and Brienne and Cleos came across when they saw, I think it was around a dozen or so, half a dozen women hung from a tree in the Jaime chapter. What was that, 2 chapters ago? So,
yeah. It does seem like it's the predominant crop of the Riverlands at the moment.
Oh, gosh.
And winter is coming.
Would that be considered gallows humor?
Hey, I see what you did there. Well done.
Oh. But speaking of Jaime and his party of two extras, I guess, party of 3 total. If the kids do make it to the Red Fork and they travel west like they plan to, they could very well pass right by Jaime, Brienne, and Cleos.
Yep. They might even hit. It might even be a coming together of these people.
Right.
Which would be then an interesting question for Brienne. If Brienne were to meet her and know who she was, what does Brienne do at that point?
Exactly. Because she's tasked with bringing Jaime to King's Landing and retrieving the girls.
Right.
But if she comes across one along the way, does she do a U-turn, or does she keep going with Jaime?
You know what? In that, just sort of like theorizing that, what she should do is cut Jaime loose. Say, where are you going to go? King's Landing? Right. That's where I want you to go. I'm taking this kid back home.
Yeah. She wouldn't get Sansa, but, I mean, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
But she could ask Jaime to fulfill the other half of the bargain. She could say to Jaime, and when you get there, fulfill your half of the bargain. You swore to it.
Well, that's true. There's about the same likelihood of Jaime coming through with his half, whether Brienne is there or not.
Right, exactly. It's not like Brienne can strong-arm the whole of King's Landing into doing what she wants.
Right, yeah.
So she did get the map from Roose Bolton, but none of them have a lot of experience in reading maps, and she's smart to focus on the rivers, but when you do hit a stream, is it a river, or is it a stream, or is it on the map, or is it not on the map? I sympathise with their issues of trying to understand that. It just would not be easy.
Oh, goodness. Oh, no, it definitely would not. You can see the challenges involved in navigating this terrain just from the description that we get. Just this chapter. They're basically using this vague map, the sun, and moss, where moss is growing on the trees, as their only guide. And it I had a thought of, like, you could see like a Blair Witch Project situation where they're just riding in circles just out of view of Harrenhal.
Right.
Because it would be really hard to ride in a straight line through this rough topography with the hills and the thick forest. It'd be really hard to do. And So I looked up because I had always thought that it was So let me back up for a second. Arya says, well, let me back up even further than that. Gendry asks, where are we going? And she says, north. And he says, how do you know which direction is north? The sun, we can't see the sun because it was the day without a dawn. And she says, you see the moss on these trees? That's south. So we're going in the opposite direction. But I had always thought that moss grew on the northern side of things. So I looked it up.
Thank you. Me too. That's what
Did you look it up as well?
Just as you start, you take a long time to get to a point, so I've looked it up and you're blathering.
Not the first time I've been accused of that by you. Go ahead then, describe what the difference is here.
Oh, I don't know, because I haven't looked at what...
Okay,
all I've looked up,
what I found when I looked it up...
the Google machine confirms my belief. Moss grows on the north side of trees.
Yes, it does in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's the south side.
I would have expected that. They are in the northern hemisphere of this planet.
Clearly, because north is where the cold is.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought that odd.
Oh, so you don't have any explanation. This is just like...
No, I don't have an explanation.
He decided to make
She thought
moss
it was on
weird.
Maybe she's misunderstanding.
Oh, yeah.
That's my explanation.
I see what you mean. She's headed south this whole time. She'll be in King's Landing before Jaime.
She'll get there before Jaime. Brienne can bring both the girls home.
I think eventually the clouds will lift and they'll be able to look at the sun and go, you know what? That sun is directly in front of us when it should be directly behind us.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought when I read it, I always thought it was on the northern side. And for us in the northern hemisphere, according to my very basic internet research, it is north in the northern hemisphere and south in the southern hemisphere. So, but is there any way she could be in the southern hemisphere? Could it get, because you'd be heading toward the equator if you were going north, which would be getting warmer. So, yeah.
No,
I don't know.
There's not. They're in the northern hemisphere. It's absolutely clear.
Well, maybe we should re-rack this and put it in pedantry.
Well, I think maybe. Now you said. I always was like, I must have not known this. I mean, I'll admit, my outdoorsiness is questionable.
Mine too.
I did honestly believe that was a mistake, and now I feel like it's been verified.
Well, maybe there are some outdoorsy people who are listening, and maybe there's a rational explanation that they could provide us.
So, Arya, of course, is incredibly tough and strong and resilient and badass, but all of that masks the fact that she's 10 years old.
Right.
You don't, she howls at wolves and basically converses with them, but she's 10 years old and she's, she is a kid.
Yeah, you couldn't see Ned doing that if he saw a pack of wolves. It's his sigil too.
He wouldn't do the fun part of that. He'd send the wolf a tersely written missive.
Yeah, you could see some vulnerability here in this. In this chapter, you see some vulnerability. She's trying her best to navigate and lead and stay strong and confident, but we get her internal thoughts where she definitely is struggling with self-doubt in her decision-making here. So, we see the fact that she's not quite as strong as she is pretending to be for the rest of her pack. Yeah.
The other two need some cajoling because they're not as willing to be here as she was, and neither of them knows how to ride a horse very well. But Gendry's pretty stoic about it, but Hot Pie most certainly is not.
Right.
He complains at every opportunity. And, of course, she's still unwilling to reveal to him her true identity. And I gotta say, the whole experience in Harrenhal has sort of justified that. There's been several times where she's been tempted to reveal, and she's never done it to anyone. The only person who sussed it is Gendry, and she did reveal to him. But she's never revealed to anybody else. When Roose Bolton came to Harrenhal, she absolutely could have said, hey, I'm Arya Stark.
Right.
But the way Harrenhal was, and the dangers of the bloody mummers and what have you, are going to make her think, I'm never telling anyone. The next person I tell I'm Arya Stark to is my mother.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about that during this chapter, and I thought the best time to do it would have been right away to tell Roose, because at that point the Lannisters were really on the ropes. Robb was clearly winning this war, and it would have been the best time. She's not just the son of some northern lord. She's not just the daughter of some northern lord. She is the sister of the king. So
Yeah.
if she had told as many people of the upper lords as she could have right away, I think that would have been the best time to do it.
Yeah. But
she doesn't know her mom is at Riverrun, though.
Right, that's true.
It might have changed the decision if she had known not just her brother, but also her mom was at Riverrun.
Yeah.
But just a reminder, she learned that Robb was at Riverrun, and through the soldiers that were coming and going at Harrenhal, they were telling outlandish stories like Robb was a warg, which actually very well might be, and that
he'd be the weird one if he wasn't at this point.
Right, and that he had giants and stuff like that. But that's how she learned he was at Riverrun. She has not learned yet that Cat's there, because they weren't talking about Cat being at Riverrun. These soldiers,
right. Yeah. She does wonder again what Gendry's secret might be. She is fairly convinced that even he doesn't know what it is, so that makes it harder to sleuth it out, because you can't question it.
Right. Yeah. And of course we know Gendry's secret is that he's King Robert's bastard. She knew something was up back at that ivy-covered inn when the Goldcloaks showed up looking for him at the Queen's direction. She thought they were looking for her. Turned out they were looking for Gendry. So she knows he's got some tie to the Queen.
Right.
But neither of them know what it is.
That leaves a huge vista of possible reasons, He may have shoddily given her a horseshoe for her horse, and it didn't work,
Now Gendry should know more, because no less than Jon Arryn, Stannis Baratheon, and Ned Stark have showed up at his workplace wanting to talk to him. He might be able to pick up on something there.
But did they ever say anything that wasn't? I actually, my recollection is that Ned did say something like, "Wow, he looks like him," or something like that. But whether he said it,
I can't remember if he said it or thought it.
Stupid books. They should just.
But he did ask what his mother looked like. He did ask him about his mother, so he might be able to parse out, why are you asking me about my parents? Maybe.
They should they should make a TV show of this, and then we wouldn't have to wonder if it was spoken or thought.
Yeah, good idea. If they stick to the story.
So Arya's spurred by fear that is probably unfounded. I mean, sure, Bolton would be mad that a couple of servants had escaped, and that they murdered someone, and that they stole from him, but he has bigger fish to fry. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Of course, all of that would change very dramatically if her identity was known. Then he'd be very interested to capture her at that point.
Yes. Yeah, I thought about that as well, and I was thinking, honestly, the biggest infraction is probably stealing the horses over even killing that guard, because those horses might be, important for their cause more so than one northern guard. But as you were saying, Roose Bolton has a lot of other issues, and so it's been a while since we talked about Roose, and there's a lot of things going on. So I just wanted to remind you guys just what some of the things that Roose is dealing with. The Lannisters, having won in King's Landing, have the Freys all bent out of shape, and they think that their cause is lost, so they want Robb to sue for peace. He's also got concerns that the Lannisters might move north and besiege Harrenhal, although he said he was not about to let that happen. He has sent Robert Glover and Helman Tallheart to Duskendale, and the Freys at the end of Arya 10 were up in arms over some dishonor that happened either to their family or from their family. It was not quite, something within their family or something that happened to their family. It wasn't quite clear in the chapter. And he's also sent Vargo Hoat and the Bloody Mummers out to hunt for Lannister supporters in the Riverlands. So he's got a lot of issues to think about.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that dishonor to the Freys, because obviously, having read ahead, I do know what that dishonor is, what they're referring to. It's surprising to me that it didn't come up in the last chapter, in fact.
Oh, the cat chapter.
The cat chapter. Because Cat received a letter from the person who, well, avoiding spoilers. You see what I mean, though? It's surprising it didn't get covered by that. Word had reached Harrenhal of it.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, that's a good point. Unless it was after the fact, because Cat 1 of this book backs up in time to the King's Landing.
Good point.
The
good
battle
point.
On the
wow, that whole timeline thing is a get out of jail free card, isn't it?
So she thinks either that Stillshanks Walton or Vargo Hoat and his brave companions, or bloody mummers as they're also known, are the two likely groups to be sent out to find her. Now, Stillshanks we met in that last Arya chapter, Arya 10 of A Clash of Kings. He was involved in he was playing headsman in Harrenhal and mounting a lot of those heads on the wall there when Arya was looking at them at the beginning of the chapter. Yeah. But between the two, between Stillshanks Walton and Vargo Hoat, I think it would be better for Arya if it was Stillshanks that was sent, because he's a Northman, and so he's more likely to respond well to Arya's revelation that she is King Robb's sister than the unstable Vargo Hoat, who is not even from Westeros at all.
Yep, that's true. That's true. I do think, of course, that she's completely overblowing her importance. I mean,
right.
Okay, Arya's importance, not Arya's importance. Her importance is actually real, but her persona is not very important at all, and so they won't be chasing her. I would think roughly at a maximum they would send maybe 4 of the brave companions to follow her.
4? Wow, that's a very specific number.
Yes. That seems more likely than the chief headsman and all the brave companions chasing after her.
Right.
But
it's a good point.
So she wargs very much like Bran did, but perhaps even more so because, I mean, Bran wargs, there's basically a pack of 2. Between Summer and Shaggy Dog, there's a pack of 2, but Nymeria, just an assumption still that it's Nymeria, has amassed a significant and well-organised pack who can seriously lend her a hand here. I mean, and if the Warg dream is to be believed, does so.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And we saw from the Jon and Bran warging chapters that nearly all instances that we've been given insight into anyway, the wolf dreams were actually real-life warging situations, not just dreams.
Yeah,
like when Summer met Jojen, and Bran uses Summer's eyes to see Winterfell when they're in the crypts, and Jon seeing the Wildling army and the Eagle.
Yeah.
And they all fit the same point of view that Arya's having here with Nymeria, where she was more like in the mind of Nymeria, be actually a wolf, not Arya in the mind. She couldn't understand the human speak, but she was, it all fit that same format.
Yeah. So the brave companions that were sent formed an interesting crew. There was a Lysini, an Ibonese, a Dothraki, and a Dornishman, which is actually one of the best openings to a Westerosi joke ever. But a minor critique, none of them have a lifetime of experience of tracking quarry in moist, rivery farmlands of central Westeros. 3 of them are from Essos, and 1 of them is from the deserts of Dorne. So actually, they're not perfect choices for this. You'd think that the Brave Companions would have at least one person with the right kind of weather/terrain knoledge to send.
Right. Yeah. Or send someone else to lead that group. Someone who is more knows the local geography better.
One question I have for you is: so we're pretty confident that she had a warg dream, not just a dream.
Right.
So the events of the dream happened, but Arya doesn't know that.
Right.
Arya might wake up the next morning and go, "Oh, I wish that happened."
Yes.
Is she going to act now as if the pursuit has been decimated behind her, or is she going to keep running until she falls asleep in the saddle?
Yeah, because you would have You wouldn't think that Roose Bolton would behave like G.R. Mormont and just keep throwing more troops at what happened to the missing force.
You
Now we're going to send people to find
out.
out. Eventually, he's going to ride out in force. Yeah, that's a very good point. She likely would not know. Oh, that was a real life. And we don't know for a fact, but it just fits with how the other things we've seen as far as these war dreams go.
But of course, the other thing that might make it seem unreal to her is that there were only 4 of them. She thinks the whole of Harrenhal is on their tail. Yeah. So she might think, well, that's a nice dream. I wish that would happen to everybody who's chasing me. But
yeah,
so I'm worried that she's still going to be.
Roose did send out the Great Ranging.
Right, exactly.
To my memory, and I really didn't look into this ahead of time, I don't recall a previous wolf dream from Arya.
Nor do I.
So I wonder if this might have something to do with Nymeria's proximity to her.
Yeah. I think so. And also, well, no, it's hardly the danger to Arya, because she's been in this much danger since Game of Thrones. She's been in this much danger.
Yeah, and she's heard wolves howling, and she's seen wolves while she was riding with Yoren. So,
yeah. So I'll put it down to proximity, like you said. So, do you have some background for us?
I do, and let me tell you, this is possibly the hardest chapter I've ever had to come up with background for. It might be because I was also on vacation, that I didn't spend a lot of time working on it, thinking about it, but I actually did. I spent a lot of mornings thinking about what I could possibly do background on for this chapter.
I did feel a responsibility to write the background for you, because I knew you were on vacation, but I took one look at the chapter and was like,
He's on his own here.
I need him.
Yeah, in the notes you had, I have no clue.
Is that what I wrote?
Yeah. And I responded with, neither do I. But I came up with something. So what I decided to focus on was just the Riverlands. Let's talk about more about the history of the Riverlands. So one of the ancient noble houses of the Riverlands was House Fisher, who were kings of the area during the time of the First Men. Some historical records suggest that House Fisher was the oldest dynasty of First Men river kings, while other works suggest that they were the second or third, but regardless, they were one of the first to rule this region of Westeros. This House Fisher is not to be confused with the northern house of the same name, who ruled the Stony Shore after the Long Night. We talked about them in the Theon chapter when they were at the Stony Shore.
Yep.
It's unknown if the two houses share any relation. House Fisher's seat was Misty Isle, and the location of Misty Isle in the Riverlands has yet to be divulged. So I tried to figure out where Misty Isle was, but literally when my research on Misty Isle led me to it hasn't been provided yet. So don't know where it is. It's believed that their sigil was a crowned catfish, spotted gray on a blue background. And no one knows for sure what brought their rule to an end. However, some suggest that they were possibly destroyed in wars with the Storm Kings or the Iron Men. The only named Fisher I could find was Sir Lymond Fisher, the Knight of Old Stones. After the Storm King Arlen III Durrandon conquered the Riverlands, various pretenders unsuccessfully claimed to be River Kings. He was one such pretender. But his exact connection to the ancient Fishers is not confirmed. So,
well, thanks for coming up with something.
I could have just said, I got nothing. So this is the best I can do.
You really had to fish for that one. Comparison with the television show. Pretty much none of this happens. She escapes Harrenhal with Gendry and Hot Pie without murdering anyone, because she gets the help of Jack and Hagar. That's his final favour to her. That's his third wish, is to help her escape.
Okay.
He does murder some people to help her get out. It's, the murder is not directly by the child, but on her behest.
Right.
Jaqen then leaves her, so she and the two boys walk north. The only TV scene of that part of this journey that I saw was the three of them talking to and being invited to join the campfire of a group of men. I don't know if it would be spoiler to say who they are, as I don't remember where the book is headed, so I won't mention who they were. But that's the only scene with the three of them walking north.
Okay.
Pedantry Corner. Unless Arya does not know how to read Moss, George Martin doesn't know how to read Moss.
See previous conversation.
Exactly.
Now, there might be a logical explanation that I'm no outdoorsman, you know? I cut the grass, I take hikes, but never to the point where I'm like backcountry having to use moss to guide my way. So,
news and notes.
Speaking of Pedantry Corner.
Oh, yes. So we got our first 1-star review on Apple Podcasts in the US. The person did, I think, make a fair comment. They said that character decisions aren't pedantry. But I mean, that's absolutely correct. Can't debate this point. But I think usually we do say, this isn't really pedantry because it's just a character decision. I think we say that more often than not.
Yes.
However, some character decisions are so obtuse that I feel that they are pedantry because it's like, that character would not make that decision. And so It's a pedantry to the whole story that the character made that decision. So, but hey.
Yeah.
We can't please everyone, Mackelly.
I knew when we started a public podcast for the masses that eventually we would receive some such criticism. And you handle such things better than I do. I've said this on the show before. I think one of the very first things that our friend Rich told me about you as we were walking to the office that you and I shared is you're going to love Simon. Nothing rattles him. Everything is like water off a duck's back.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, that's not true, but I mean, it is for 1-star reviews from people I don't know. I'm like, whatever. On to brighter things.
Yes, on to brighter things. Well, last episode, we told you that the Hollywood Reporter had reported that HBO was working on a Game of Thrones sequel that would focus on a character from the Game of Thrones TV show. Well, since then, Martin has confirmed a few things. The working title is the character's last name. Now remember, we are not saying who this character is because we are a spoiler-free show, and this sequel is a spin-off of whoever made it to the end of the show. It's been in the works. It turns out it's been in the works as long as the other 3 spin-offs, the 10,000 Ships, the Sea Snake, and the Duncan Egg show. But for some reason, no leaks on this show occurred until now. He also confirmed, Martin that is, confirmed that the driving force behind the show's creation was the actor who played the character on A Game of Thrones.
Okay, so it's a human. It's not one of the dragons.
That's right. Having pulled together, this actor pulled together much of the production staff, including the showrunner and the writers. And this new team has met with Martin and his band of writers and consultants to nail down details of the show.
So he is involved then?
He is involved, yes. Yeah. Of course, it's all... Well, who knows how it will play out compared to A Song of Ice and Fire, because the Game of Thrones has already ended, and we are not at the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, so we hope.
Of course, that being said, we don't know if the end of the TV show is going to correspond to the end of the books. I mean, the books might actually continue on to follow this character for longer than the TV show. So maybe this is all in plan for George Martin. Yes.
Or maybe it is now.
Yeah. He said, all right, 8 books it is. All right, let's conclude. So Arya is definitely the happiest she's been in a while. And the whole warg dream about munching on some bloody mummers has got to feel good after months of restricted freedom, if any.
Yes. She might think that's what the dream was. It was just about getting retribution to the people that she really wanted so badly to get retribution on. But it's clear that she's the leader of this little group of theirs. But like we were saying earlier, food, navigation, roving bands of ne'er-do-wells, because, the Riverlands probably isn't completely, even if those 4 bloody mummers are gone, there's probably other unsavory characters in this area, so they're all still going to be a concern. And speaking of all that, I kind of liked Martin putting a realistic obstacle like this in front of them, not just gloss over those realities. The reality of the daily life of trying to trudge through such a region, especially as 3 teens at best. Arya's only 10, and with very vague instructions on how to get where they're trying to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think her prospects for escape were never quite as grim as she feared they were, because nobody knows her identity. She's not that big of a deal. But I do think that without the wolves, the 4 sellswords probably would have caught her. Because, I mean, like I said, even though they weren't natives to that region, they probably had enough tracking skills to track 3 horses through the woods. So,
yes.
Nymeria's done her a solid there.
Absolutely, yeah. And it seems like Arya can warg just like Bran and Jon, speaking of Nymeria. Yeah. So what we can take from that right now is that all 3 Stark POVs with living wolves seem to have the power to warg. So we have to assume based on that Robb and Rickon might as well, which would be very dangerous. But Rickon and Shaggy are warging.
You did just legitimize Jon, by the way.
Oh, I did. That's right.
That's fine, if you want to do that.
He'd probably be happy to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
I called him a Stark.
You know who would have objected. Catelyn Stark would be like, wait a minute. So the chances of them being caught now seem pretty remote. I mean, they should have relatively plain sailing through the Riverlands, providing that they read that map accurately, you know. And if they do, if they get it right, then, like you said, there is a definite chance that they're going to intercept with Jaime and Brienne, which could make for an interesting. There's one of the beauties of the book, and to a certain extent the TV show as well, is you've got all of these characters doing their story, but they're often in sort of geographic isolation from one another. And whenever 2 of them intersect, it's always a fascinating moment. It's like,
it is.
You know, these 2 people have come together.
Yeah, definitely. And now we don't know the timelines. Like I said, you know, the chapters at the beginning of this book are earlier than the chapters at the end of A Clash of Kings. But we know that, but we don't know how these chapters now at the beginning of A Storm of Swords, what their chronological makeup is.
Right, yeah. We just know it's vague. Yeah.
Yes, it's vague.
But Nymeria and her pack make a really useful Secret Service detail. I mean,
they sure do. Yes, that's one way to get through dangerous. Exactly. She doesn't need these boys. She's got an entire wolf pack to help her out. Yeah, now, of course, we're unsure if the brave companions were actually killed in Arya's dream, in real life killed, but all of our previous evidence points to it having been real. All our previous wolf dreams seem to, for the most part, have been real situations. So, we're off to King's Landing next. We got a Tyrion chapter. It's a longish one too.
Oh, cool. All right. So, I always remember seeing the sticker on like a vehicle, like a service vehicle of some sort, and it said, "If you like us, tell your friends. If you don't like us, tell us." So,
yes.
Go out and leave
Great advice.
Go out and leave us a positive review. Help spread the word. If you want to discuss the show, please reach out via email. Our email address is ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. We will take under advisement. I already have. I mean, I'm already thinking I will not put a character decision in pedantry without very careful consideration.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, the point is valid.
You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
And you can help us out by buying merchandise from us at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. Or you could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold from buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. If you could also become sustainers at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level. And for all of that, we greatly thank you.
And while Mackelly's not on vacation, there are some significant benefits to being members of the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm sustainers. I do apologize, guys. Mackelly should not leave me in charge. He knows better. That's his last vacation.
I had a hunch because our email address is also on that distribution list, and when I didn't see it come in, I thought, they're 6 hours ahead of me. feel like I should have gotten this a while ago. So that's why I sent you the email. How'd it go with that? Oh, goodness. That's okay.
I blame
Things
you.
like that happen.
You should never have trusted me. All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.